Mr. George Harrison.
Handle me with care. Give me peace on earth.
I think you might have been the most anxious of the four to get out.
Maybe,
Well,
maybe, yeah.
Yeah. I wonder
It was
why.
very, well, because over the years, you know, I had such a lot of songs mounting up that I really wanted to do, but I only got my quota of 1 or 2 tunes per album.
Mm-hmm.
And that way I would have had to have recorded about 100 Beatle albums just to get out the tunes I had in 1965.
I'm not really as serious as people think or have thought. You know, they always thought that I was the serious one, but really that is kind of a mask to hide the madman inside of me, which is really like a Monty Python lunatic.
Oh Lord, you pay the price with the spin of the wheel, with the roll of the dice. Ah, yeah, you pay your fare, and if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
It was important to me, rather than pursuing another $1 million or another hit record, was to find out who am I, where have I come from, and where am I going.
To induct George Harrison into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Jeff Lynne and Hall of Fame inductee Tom Petty.
Thank you. Some years ago, George asked me to speak and present him with a Billboard Lifetime Achievement Award. And he began his acceptance speech by saying, "I'm sure being in the Beatles has not been a hindrance to my solo career." He was first inducted into this great hall as a member of the Beatles, and tonight he receives a second nomination as a solo artist. Having stood on stage and off between Lennon and McCartney is a really tough spot for an aspiring songwriter. Yet learning his craft, he grew into an excellent writer, coming up with classics like Something, Here Comes the Sun, many more. He became so prolific that he began to stockpile large amounts of unreleased songs, and this would become the basis for his first album, All Things Must Pass. Which was the first #1 album by an ex-Beatle. And many more hits would come. He often said he wasn't pursuing a solo career at all. He never hired a manager or had an agent. He just loved playing music with his friends. And he loved guitars, and he loved rock and roll, and he loved Carl Perkins, and he loved Little Richard. And he loved Danny and Olivia. And he loved to stay up all night long and play the ukulele till dawn, till the kids were all in bed and tucked away. Throughout the 80s, he hit #1 again with his Cloud 9 LP. And then he formed what he called his other band, the Traveling Wilburys. And that was with Jeff Lynne and myself and some other guys. But George really was a man who lived every single minute of his life. He really filled a room. He was a very upbeat person. He had a very keen sense of humor, very keen sense of spirit. He was never preachy. He led by example. Years before Live Aid, George invented the idea of rock and roll giving back to the people. And I know, as I look around, I know many of you in the room knew him. And he was my dear friend, and yours, and the world's. He achieved much more than being a successful artist. He was a truly great man. And so we're going to put him in the Hall of Fame. We're going to induct him. We're going to just push him right in there. But I need you all to say Hare Krishna. He's in there.
Hello. George was a great friend of mine, and we used to hang out a lot and make lots of records. Knowing George as well as I did, he's probably watching tonight and saying, get on with it. So I'd just like to say, well done, mate. You're in the Hall of Fame, where you belong, and it's about time. Thanks.
Dad actually came back in 1987 from when he got the last one of these, and I never told you this, but I broke it, and I glued the bit back in, but no one noticed. He made a great, or actually Mick made a great speech in 87 where he referred to the Beatles as the four-headed monster, and when they were all inducted, and he told me lots of great stories, my dad, about that night, and I'd just like to say thanks to all of his mates, you know, who he'd love to see, all the guys for coming and playing, and to the Hall of Fame for, you know, having him in again, and yeah, to everyone who's ever liked his music, good on you. Cheers.
Here I go again. I could talk about George, you know, forever, but I won't. There was a quote by the Indian poet Tagore that George read to me one day. He said, "Blessed is he whose fame does not outshine his truth." And here we are in the Hall of Fame. But the inductees were not chosen because of their fame, but because they expressed their truth through their music. George said that he tried to write songs that would still mean something years from now. And I think it's safe to say that in spite of his immense fame, his truth will never be outshined or forgotten. Good. If he were here, you know, he'd get a kick out of tonight. He'd be wanting to see everybody and party. But there probably would be a lot of people that he would thank. And, you know, if you think of the span of his entire career, there'd just be so many people who are in this room tonight that he may want to mention. But I'm going to mention one that I'm sure of, and it's the person in this room that George knew the longest in his life, that he met behind the air raid shelter when he was sneaking off to have his ciggy in school. And someone who looked after him and all of them from the time they were 13 to, for George, the end of his life. And that's the mysterious Neil Aspinall. Because, thank you, Neil, for holding it together for all these years, because really the whole phenomenon might not have happened or stayed together as long as it did without him. And, you know, he helped us, he's helped his family, and George loved him dearly, and many of you as well. So thank you very much, and let's let George's music speak for itself.
That is, All Things Must Pass just shows the nature of the physical world. Everything is changing all the time. We get born and we die. But we are in this body and we go through from birth to death. We stay the same. The soul is the same, but the body is changing. And like that, you know, it's the nature of, it's called duality, and it just keeps changing, but everything passes except the essence of that, which is our soul. You know, I don't believe I have great musical ability or great lyrical ability. And I have a bigger problem than that, is because of my influence from Indian music and that whole spirit thing, is that I don't see the point to writing most songs. Like most people will write, I could write hundreds of songs, you know, hey baby, what you gonna do? You know, that I could churn them out, but I don't want to. If I'm gonna say something, I'd like it to have some kind of importance, some value, so that, you know, in 20 years' time, it's not just some dumb song that made, you know, some royalties. I mean, the royalties are nice, but it would be good to be able to have something a little deeper. And so, you know, it's very difficult how, that's why the chants of India is much better, because it's all there in Sanskrit. You just say the Sanskrit, and they're all mantras, and they're all prayers, and they all have a spiritual connection. It's much easier than trying to write in English some incredible philosophy or something that has a value. You know, I'm unhappy about the world being concreted over and all the forests chopped down and the air polluted, and the fact that the planet is in the control of mad people. You know, people who are crazy, people who are greedy, all these people who are selling the rainforest and, you know, any forests, just selling it because they make some money without, you know, I'm very unhappy about that, but I have a long-term view, which is all things must pass. I mean, before it used to be maybe they're going to blow us up with H-bombs, but even that, I thought, it don't really matter. They can't destroy what's within ourselves. Krishna said, there's no time when we didn't exist, and there'll be no time when we cease to exist. The only thing that changes is the body. So even if they blew us up with H-bombs, our soul will stay in our other astral body, and the only thing that won't be here is physical. So, you know, I'm sad about it, the world, but I look at it from within and without.